9/11. We did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right.
We've taken control of the oil in the Middle East, the oil that we're talking about.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create.
We choose truth over facts.
America's a nation that can be defined in a single word.
Television. People are saying.
Have you been watching television?
Off of Silicon Valley
It's estimated that 200 million people have died. Probably by the time I finish this talk. Agreed that everybody wants to, in fact, no, my time's up. I'm sorry. America's dead.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome.
Friends and family. It is Monday night. How are you doing, Chris? On Monday, how do you feel on Mondays?
I'm hanging in there today, man. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm a little bit of a Garfield myself. Working the full-time schedule, like coming back to the work week and feeling like
Garfield.
Feeling like that shit. Well, you know, like the Garfield syndrome, where like you just dread Mondays, like to the absolute nearest extent. But I just wanted to say like how right we were about RFK, with this like past like Israel thing, and I really just want to call like how easy it was. It was really not hard to figure.
It's almost. Do we even have a clip of just him? I could probably pull up the old thing. We should have did that. Pulled up the soundbite and just heard him talking about like Israel or something like that, straight from his presidential speech, because we were calling him cringe a month ago.
Yeah, and, like guys, like this was not, and it's the same thing with Cornel West. Like they're just buying right into it. Like we'll get into that later. I want you to go first with the pride stuff, but like it's so disheartening and discouraging to see like other people who are like, quote unquote, like dem exit, and they're like fully done with the duopoly, but then some sort of a palatable candidate comes along and then all of a sudden they're like fully bought into it. And it's the same thing, Green Party, whatever. But
it's kind of like the bigger picture with like the Democrats in general, like their whole thing, and really the Republicans for that matter too, is they want you to ignore their foreign policy. They want you to ignore their geopolitics because that's where they agree most of the time. Other than like one wants to fight China and Taiwan, the other one wants to fight like Russia and Ukraine. Like they're both pretty much the same. So as long as they can get you to ignore their really ghoulish stuff about like foreign policy, like stuff that comes to them like Israel or like the never-ending wars, they'll get you to like talk about like kind of like the culture war stuff. Get you all like amped up about like the social stuff, the like, oh, pretend that Medicare for all is right around the corner, or that the 4-day work weeks are around the corner. I don't know. Is that something that they've talked about recently?
I don't know. Like, they'll tweet something nice. It doesn't really matter because like in like a political like environment where like we're like beyond electoralism, we're not. We're simply not because people are like still bought into the psyop that any of this is working. Everyone's saying RFK has no shot. Everyone.
No shot. I mean, he was polling at 20% or so?
They're not going to let him get the primary. Are you kidding me?
Well, no, he won't get in.
Every neoliberal is behind Biden right now. They're not going to they're not even going to let him talk, which is beyond the conversation. I don't even want to get into it. It's too much.
Well, it's like Simone Sanders said on MSNBC. Like, what is MSNBC, right? That she said that she was like, they already decided that Biden's going to be the incumbent nominee. There's not going to be any primaries.
Yeah, there's no debates. There's no debates. There's no conversation. Biden is your nominee. I'm sorry.
But we'll play the game anyway for another 18 months or so and pretend that.
Yeah, let's play their rigged electoral game.
So, like, at what point are they going to like make it official? Will it be like before Christmas? No, it'll be after Christmas. It'll probably be after Christmas. When are the end of the primaries technically? Usually, I don't even know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll find out in 2024, right?
I mean,
we're not even we're like a year out.
yeah, but they'll. I think RFK Jr. and Marianne will endorse Biden.
They're gonna drop that. They're gonna drop
way
that.
before then.
Just watch. I mean, it's not, and again, this is not hard to figure out either. It's not hard to see, but like, watch a bunch of people defend either Marianne or RFK or any of these people to the grave because they need a superhero. They need an idol. They need someone to hero worship, and they need a mommy and daddy figure to come save the day. So
They just need other people to shepherd people who are who went farther left after Bernie, but didn't quite like break out of the cycle to like get shepherded back into the Democratic Party. Maybe they voted for Trump, and it's like, okay, it's time to come back. You know, but all right. So I guess
you just want to come back, but yeah,
what's that? So we'll start off at the top of this. So Pride Month started June 1st. So yay, rainbow flags and like solidarity and diversity and
it's time to virtue sing. It's time for Fortune 500 companies to start battling who pretends they love gay people the most.
That's kind of where it is, and that's kind of where
it's a big contest of like who can love LGBTQ people the most.
It's funny because I was originally gonna kind of prepare the joke where it was like go through on the Twitter handles and they all have like the rainbow kind of like logos going on. But I actually saw some stuff to the contrary where they weren't doing that stuff, and I guess they like saw what happened with fucking Dylan and saw what happened with Target, and they're like, maybe we'll just wait a little bit. But
no, I think the conversation's shifting. I really think at this point, I think there's like a consensus as to like or at least like we're seeing it like sort of as a reaction to like the radical like trans feminist sort of like ideology is like of like, oh, it's my way or the highway kind of deal. Yeah. I mean, that's not how we got gay rights. That is not how we got gay rights at all. So their strategy is completely off. They're arrogant, sometimes violent. You saw that with the Riley Gaines thing. I'm not trying to generalize. I'm just saying that like it's a complete like it's very obviously a co-opted strategy because it's not going anywhere substantial.
Well, and that's kind of something I wanted to kind of say about it before I got into the subject. Is like neither of us here are transphobic. Both of us are capable of having nuance.
I have trans friends. I have plenty of trans friends.
Okay, like I don't even need to be that guy.
And like, I don't need to say that either. Like, it's not like, oh, I got a trans friend, so I can say this.
I know,
like
but
that at all.
Like, I went to my ex-wife was super close to a trans male, okay, and we went to his wedding, okay, and like I used to ask him questions as like a liberal, like I didn't know any better, just kind of like we were cool enough. And I knew he was like trans, and I could like ask him kind of like questions, stuff like social questions and stuff, and it was like not a big deal. Like, anyway, the thing is that things have gotten kind of out of control, and what I was kind of getting at was that like it's gone from, there was a time, even more than less than 10 years ago, where it just wasn't talked about at all, and like. We had like trans friends who like, I'm sure for every single one of them, there was a moment where they were just like, okay, I pass 90, 95% of the time. I'm just going to like go into the bathroom like I mean it and no one's going to say shit. There was like a point that dawned, nobody like needed to get permission. Nobody needed to protest in the streets. If like a trans person wanted to like kind of use the bathroom, I guess, for lack of a better term, they kind of had to like earn that right, And like I was watching Blair White the other night, and she was saying that before she even transitioned, when she was like 29, she said that as like a really flamboyant gay teenager, she would go into the women's restroom. And okay, so just imagine like a really super flamboyant gay teenager, like male teenager, going into a female restroom. Okay, Blair White said that she used to do that all the time as a teenager because she didn't want to get harassed by fucking men in the normal men's restroom. So like there needs to be something to be said there, that there's like part of something that people don't understand that Blair White has kind of said is that women wake up every day with like kind of like this like overarching fear of men. So when we take the idea of gender and we just make it whatever like a man feels like it is, then you have like bearded ladies walking into the bathrooms with like, you know, not making any effort, then that like fear like goes up again, you know? And so that's kind of where I'm getting at. Like, there used to be a time it was just like an unspoken rule, and everybody was cool with it on some level, whether you were like a hardcore conservative or not. You know, the trans community knew well enough to pass and participate in society, and it's kind of shifted where instead of if they wanted to go through that transformation, that they had to like commit to the reality that everybody else was a part of. It's now become a situation where it's now everybody else has to commit to the reality that the transgender movement has started, you know? And so there's this whole idea where like I don't like the Walsh dude at all, but he asked the question, what is a woman? And like it's just crazy that question can be asked these days, you know? That we can't answer that question, that that's not like a straightforward answer. So anyway, with the beginning of Pride Month, now we get to be a little bit more cynical about it. And I was going to kind of start off with kind of getting into the origins of trans, because it's kind of
And to add to that, like I sorry, like I missed this, but like I feel like there's also like specifically with like the male to female aspect of it, I feel like there is like a little bit of a fetishization aspect to it, because I mean you saw that with like the milking, like the lactation guy.
yeah. I guess I could have went there, but like that's just kind of like it was a little bit just salacious. But yeah, that was like I think that person got
That's too
reported,
much. That's way too much.
and that person I think got reported to Child Protective Services because no rational adult like I thought a
You can't
rational
post that
adult understood.
online. You just can't.
I
It's
thought a
like-
rational adult understood that like men cannot like breastfeed, like cis. I hate that word, but cis men.
yeah, absolutely not.
And so there's this guy who's made it kind of his thing about being like able to milk his man boobs and had his OnlyFans with it. And it's just very, yeah. There's a whole group of people that I'll get into in a bit who fetishize it, and it's gone beyond from being a sliver of portion of 1% of society of people who have like legitimate like gender dysphoria, like they wake up every day dreading the fact that they are in the wrong body. Like I'm sure that exists. I'm sure that it exists, that there's no matter any sort of psychological or therapeutic treatment that can overcome that. Maybe like surgical and medical procedures is like the right answer for that. But there's also the people like you were describing, Gag, the people who fetishize it, the people who just like have like a sexual attraction to having like the opposite genders like sexual organs on their body or on their person. Like that turns them on. That's a completely different. Like you remember that guy who like used to go to school every day and he had the fake freaking enormous.
Oh yeah, the woodshop teacher with the giant.
The woodshop teacher. Now
Yeah,
some people
that was like that's. I feel like that wasn't. That
he
had
could have been.
That
He
was
could have
not-
been just a troll. He could have been
Yeah.
just a troll and proving a point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's like one of the things that people are arguing about and making a good point about it is that you're taking the worst of society, the fetishists, and you're normalizing it into like a school setting. So that's not okay in my book. We should probably like let the like if there really are like sexual deviance like occurring in childhood, like let's let them get figure that out in the setting outside of school. Did we just? I don't know what just happened with Greg. If he just muted for a second, but yeah. So I do think that that's part of it. So I do kind of want to get into the beginning of where kind of Pride came from and where like the origins of the trans movement came from, because it's not exactly the most, I think, positive in my opinion. It's kind of this guy, Dr. Money, and let's see if I can get this to work. So we'll start with this. We'll share my screen.
Okay, my mouse was going whack for a second.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So
you got to share the full screen. It's showing both. You can't like split the screen like that. Yeah.
All right. It wasn't just letting me double click it. But anyway, so John Money, this gentleman was kind of like the founder of trans identity. He kind of had the idea that people within themselves had kind of like an urge to be a gender other than what they were born with, and that this urge could be so strong that it could transcend your physical characteristics and can only be remedied through medical and surgical treatment. And this goes back about almost over half a century. But really, what's kind of really shady about this guy and his claim to fame, okay? So this Dr. Money guy, he started he saw an opportunity to put his theory to the test with two children, okay? They were two twins. And very early on...
Command plus a little bit on this.
What's that?
Command plus a little bit?
Yeah. Let's do this one. All right, so the claim to fame for Dr. Money was doing his gender reassignment on a twin. So very early on, these two twins, 8 months old, one of the kids, his penis was accidentally cut off during surgery. So rather than, kind of raise the kid as a male without penis, they raised him as a female, even though he was a twin, and to kind of basically make him a lifetime test for Dr. Money's theory of kind of gender fluidity, gender ideology. He wanted to put that theory to the test, and he was like, hey, you can take somebody who is a child and you can raise them with basically through indoctrination, brainwashing, whatever you call it, by reinforcing gender stereotypes, that the person will grow up thinking that they're female and they will have no problem. And thus it is proving his point that gender ideology is beyond physical, and that it can be just mental. That's kind of where the dysphoria comes from, except he was saying that it can only be remedied through surgery. Well, anyway,
which is why it's like interesting that it's like such like an increase over the past couple of years, because like gender dysphoria is not fun. It's not something that anyone ever wants to ever experience. And oftentimes, I mean, I might be wrong, but like I'm thinking, like I've read studies where there's surgery that actually increases the gender dysphoria.
So one of the like it's a careful argument to have, because there's two sides to it. There's the people that argue, hey, you've heard it a million times. There's like, hey, if you're telling this person who feels like they're in the wrong body that they're not allowed to have surgery, then you're increasing their risk of suicide. You're increasing their risk of self-cancellation. You've heard that argument. On the flip side, something like over 40% of trans adults have tried to commit suicide. Okay, so like on both sides of the coin, you can argue that like it's really easy, especially which what I believe is a social contagion. People are kind of wrapped up in this whole gender ideology thing. So like it's gone from being a fraction of 1% to 20% of children associate as being on LGBTQ. 20%. Okay? Like that's unheard of in just like 5 or 6 years. It's gone from like a fraction of a percent to 20%. So definitely something going on there that's beyond just genetics, you know. But what was I saying? So what ended up happening with this claim to fame, this experiment, this lifetime experiment, was this kid who had his dick cut off during surgery. In his mid-20s, kind of like snapped out of it, realized he was in the wrong body, and like everybody kind of caved into it. And at the age of 38, he ended up killing himself. So definitely that experiment definitely didn't work, and that is something that everybody claims to fame on. Was that Dr. My father gender ideology? They did the Raymer experiment, and it went south. But nobody talks about after he was trans and as an adult how it worked out for him. It didn't work out well for him at all. He was miserable. So it's just good to kind of keep that in mind of where it kind of came from, because that's kind of like the origin story of the trans movement. That's kind of where it all came from. So what else do I got here? So I think we can probably go. Oh yeah. So one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up was some of the stories that I'm starting to see. So a few weeks ago, or I guess a few months ago, there was a story in Texas about some books that were being banned, some books that were being taken off the shelves because they had sexual content in them. So I went through and actually found one of them and went through it, and guess we'll just kind of look through some of it together, and we can kind of see where to go from there. But before we do, there was one other thing I wanted to get into, just because it's kind of like irked me a little bit, is this kind of like idea of cis, and I'll share my screen on that too. So, let's see. So, the term cis, it was coined by a dude who's pedo, straight up pedophile. And so, like, I used to not really care, but once I kind of figured this out, once I kind of like would discover this guy who is into sex with children, this guy who kind of mainstreamed this idea that like people who are not trans were cis, or people who were identified as the body that they are born in, or per body that they were like defined at birth, considered cis. The guy who came up with that shit was a straight up pedo. So that's
Convicted?
So let's see if I can kind of get into this. Problem with pedosexuals is not their desire to abuse children, but acting on an impulse. He proposed that the best in creating pedos is not the loss of their desire, but instead preventing them from having contact with children. So he didn't really have a problem with pedos. He was just like, oh, they need to be separated from kids, like not children.
So he's Vosh, basically.
You get it.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. No, it's morally acceptable to have sort of sexual.
Well, you see, it's like I've seen that.
That's the natural.
I've seen that destiny
moral transition. That's that's the goal, right?
There's that destiny. There's that destiny meme where he has the Venn diagram of like ethical porn.
Oh, Chank and Destiny are going to debate tomorrow.
Oh, that's a joke. But like, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as like ethical CP. No, there's not. And so, like, the idea that the guy who came up with cis, and then like trans people want to call me cis, and then like come to find out this guy was like a huge advocate of pedophilia and what's called now MAP, minor attracted persons. That fucking bullshit. Like, no, I'm not cool with that. So that's why I kind of reject that term. Again, it's about It used to be a time less than 10 years ago where it was about if you wanted to change your body to something that you were not born into, like you had to kind of commit to society. This is kind of like forcing us to commit to the reality that the trans community lives in. And if their reality is condoning people who are pedosexuals and pedophiles, like I'm not cool with that. So
And
I'm not.
it really comes down to it's really as simple as girls don't want to see dicks in the girls' bathroom. They really don't. They just don't. That's
That's really all it is.
Yeah,
But
it's really all it
it's
comes down to. Like
let's
no one gives a shit like what you identify as, what you want to do in
well,
your bedroom. No one gives a fuck.
and that's what I was saying about Blair White earlier. Was that like it's not even about having a dick in the bathroom, because they knew that Blair White, before she transitioned, was just like this super flamboyant gay dude. There was no threat. There was no threat of violence of a man subjugating a woman. You see this gay dude walk into a men's bathroom. You're like, that guy's not gonna fucking try and mug me. That guy's not gonna try and do anything. Like, So there's that like threatening element, and that's why I think when we need to be careful about when we have those people who like have the 5 o'clock shadow saying that they're either they them's or she hers, not to let men like identify what it means to be a woman, because that takes away womanhood altogether. And then you have threatening creatures going into women's bathrooms and making women uncomfortable, and that kills the women's movement altogether. So moving on, I guess, a little bit. Let's go through this book. So let me pull up this article really quick. So this book was banned in Texas a few months ago. It was called Genderqueer. And I was like, what's the big deal? Like, are these people like freaking out, or is it like an actual thing? So let's go through some of this book and together and see what we can come across. So, fair warning, this book. Oh, is that it? Let's see. Maybe that's not it. Hold on. Oh, here's the book. Australia declared the book mature. I'll just like say that there. That means 15 and above. This was in a high school library. So I saw this in there. I thought that, like, I don't remember going to school and never having books teach me on how to do binding and like tucking and stuff like that. So I just thought that was helpful. So let's see. I've never. This is like some like weird like thing. So I don't know. I can just like skip to different pages. Doesn't look like I can. That's freaking annoying. Does it look like I can? Do you see anything here? It looks like I can skip pages. It doesn't. Huh?
What'd you say?
It doesn't look like I can skip to any certain pages. That's really freaking annoying. So let's see it. Let's see if I can kind of.
You can't go like next. You can't go. You can't like hit next.
There's no way to. So this entire book is about gender ideology, about not being comfortable in your own body. So this is like something that I'm sure any male or any female can go through. These are all questions that everybody asks themselves as like a normal kid, right? Like, I wish I had a different name. I feel like something's wrong with me. I hate my breasts. I don't want to have kids. I wish I was a boy. I wish I was a girl. I never want to have sex. I wish I had short hair. These are all normal questions that any teenager with crazy hormones is going to ask themselves, right? Like, but no, let's tell people. Let's see, this will go to 77. All right, so they try and make the comparison that like old school sex ed was just like the average, like, you got the condom on the banana, you're showing like the internal organs, they're teaching you about like different STDs and stuff like that. And then it kind of goes into, as I showed you, a little bit on how uh, people who aren't comfortable because they're normal kids going through normal questions, asking themselves, like, I'm not comfortable in my skin, shows them how to like bind, how to like be different people, and how to adopt the other gender instead of just learning how to overcome your, and like basically turning dysphoria into like a mainstream thing instead of just being like children being children. Okay, so this is where I was like kind of like, what the fuck? Like, do we really need to be teaching kids how to like hide their identity? I don't know. Like, I thought that was a little weird. Let's see. Really wish I could skip this a little faster.
Just pop into those pages.
Huh?
Just pop.
I know. So this is kind of weird. So
what is you can't see the whole I don't understand. It's not an open PDF.
No, it's not a PDF. It's like some website,
like an online.
Yeah. Can you see the page though?
Yeah.
All right. So it says the clearest metaphor I had for my own gender identity in college was the image of a scale. A huge weight had been placed on one side without my permission. Okay, so this person's saying that they were forced their gender without consent. I was constantly trying to weigh down the other side, but the end goal wasn't masculinity. The goal was balance. So this is like mischaracterizing the gender binary anyway. What I think is strange about this is that this person, it's like one of the weird things about trans in general for me is that they try and say that it's not a binary and that it's fluid, and then they put shit like this up that proves that it is a binary. Or they're like, I know it's not a binary, so I am going to bind myself to make myself look like a boy. Well, then it is a binary, isn't it? If you're like going through the effort to try and change how you look, then you're defined to look like what culture defines as normal characteristics, then you are fulfilling a binary. So
whatever like that concept of passing means.
Well, and I mean, I know that can be like a charged up phrase or whatever, but I don't think it's that unreasonable. Like, and like, if you want to be queer, if you want to be like really flamboyant and you want to be a dude that presents as a woman, I don't even give a shit. Like, that doesn't bother me. But like, for people who are like, if we're doing the bathroom discussion, like, yeah, I think there is like an effort to be made where the idea is not to necessarily look more feminine, I guess, as I made that comparison with Blair White, but to be less threatening to the other women in the bathroom. Like, if you're a gay guy in the bathroom, like, they're not perceiving that threat. If you're like a guy with a full scruff going into the women's bathroom, I can understand why they would be threatened by that, right? That's like reasonable to me. So let's see. 129, 136. Oh, so this is kind of crazy. So first trip to the gyno, and this person's been identified as thinks they're a male in a female body. I felt as if I had been stabbed through my entire body, and with this came a wave of psychological horror and the realization that things can go inside the body. That's just a crazy image to me. I don't remember ever being taught that. Then 36. Let's see. This is just talking about masturbation. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is kind of like what I wanted to get into. And this is kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where some people fetishize it, okay? You guys can read this book. I can put the link up later, but like, this is like what I wanted to focus on. This is like the big, like, what the fuck? Can you see all right?
Yeah, maybe
Auto.
zoom in like a little bit.
It won't because it's like a pop up. It won't let me zoom in by 200%.
Yeah. Maybe you might have to like save it as like an image or something. Well,
See. Oh, come on. See if I can pull it up again. Crazy shit. Sorry, guys. Where'd it go? Hold on. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. 158. Won't let me like pick the freaking page. That's also really freaking annoying. All right, so I want to talk about this really quick because this is like one thing. This is why like we should be pumping the brakes a little bit because of these people. And this isn't a high school library. It's not talking about gender dysphoria. This is where it brings it in full perspective. So the person in this book is discovering that there's like millions of different gender identities out there. And this is the one that the author of the book decided that they are. Autoandrophilia refers to a person assigned female at birth who is sexually aroused at the thought or image of having male genitalia or being a man. Okay? The male version of this, a male who,
so that's what I was talking about, yeah.
Autogynephilia. Okay? You've heard that expression before. Autogynephilia. Okay? So the whole story in this book is about a dude, it's about a woman who fetishizes the idea of having male body parts. Okay? And this is in a high school library. If we're supposed to be caring about like the people who are first off, I have a problem sexualizing kids. Okay, so the idea that it's a fetish is sexual in nature in itself. Secondly, if we do believe that this really is something that should be treated as a medical issue, why are we teaching kids about fetishizing it in school? Okay? And thirdly, like if it is like dysphoria, then like why are we not treating it as dysphoria? Why are we treating it as like freaking this fetish? And like the person who's saying why do you dwell on this issue? I dwell on this issue because I have a problem with us fetishizing, freaking changing our gender in fucking high school. I have a problem with that. I have a fucking problem with that. Okay? And if that's in the school, like I think we need to draw the line. Because what happens when we fetishize freaking sexual content in schools and we make that appropriate for children? Then those children end up being objectified. Okay? So now we have children being objectified by the trans community in high school libraries. I have a problem with that. It's not like I didn't even really care that much about the books. It became a problem when I saw that it was autoandrophilia. That's literally the thought. Person who is sexually aroused. People want to talk about how like the trans community is not about sexualizing children. Where here it is, right here, sexually aroused at the thought of having male genitalia or being a man. That's a fucking problem to me. That's sexualizing children. So like that's where I have a problem with this. And so, I'll bring up, I guess, a couple other things that I think are interesting. Okay, here's people being laughed out of. They go to freaking city council, and they're allowed to speak their mind. And oh wait, they're not, or they'd be laughed out of the room. You can tell me if this is just a guy like overreacting, or if he's like standing up for children.
Yeah, they actually like. There's actually they announced some like free speech guy in the UK who's like fairly I guess you could say controversial on this issue, or rather like is like open to like both sides, because there's a lot of like if you're like a quote unquote like anti-woke like speaker, there's a great chance like you'll get like physically harassed or chased out.
Dude, like okay, so let's look through some of these autogenic.
So it's like I'm not saying it's like even like a big thing either. I don't think that it is just like
Well, and
happening
here's the
too
problem.
often enough, but it's like on the horizon.
If we want to talk about an issue being it being not a big thing, I agree. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big thing. Gay men go into women's restrooms, and they've been doing that for time immemorial because they feel safe in women's bathrooms. And women do not feel threatened by gay men in their bathrooms. Okay? It wasn't a problem. But it became a problem when we started sexualizing children and we started making it where like people had to go into the bathrooms and you had to make it okay. And people who just suddenly like, I shaved before I did the show. Just me deciding that I didn't want to shave and walk into a woman's bathroom that day doesn't make it okay for me to do that. But suddenly the law wants to make it okay for me to do that. So I have a problem with that. So let's look at some of these AGPs, okay? Because yes, like you're right, like some of it does kind of dominate this.
You didn't look into Gslan?
These are,
You didn't look into GSL.
I will be looking into that and talking more about that on Thursday. But
right.
Like to just kind of like put a pin in what you were saying, okay? It's not. I'm not saying everybody does this, but if you have a daughter, okay, you have a young daughter, and there's a 1% or a 0.5% chance that your daughter who goes into a women's public bathroom is going to be assaulted by a man who claims to be a woman without making any effort, just decides one day. Is that like a percentage?
Traumatized, even that's not.
Is that a percentage you're okay with?
Doesn't have to be.
We've talked about how it's like the women who were on the swim team with Leah Thomas were traumatized, and they were told by their colleagues to shut the fuck up. Like that's not cool. Like, so it doesn't matter if it's like a one-off here, or even though like we spend a lot of online time, like we see it more than like it happens in real life. But even the fact that it happens a fraction of a percent.
It's almost not even the issue itself. It's almost like the culture surrounding it, which is the problem.
And that's why it's a problem to me, is because the fact that they're trying to mainstream it means that they want to make it okay for the times that it happens 1% of the time,
which is not something that like many like people are, and this is like really a big dividing line on like left politics, where like you're able to like create enemies out of people by like simple statements. Like even though if we agree on like 99% of the issues,
you're failing the purity test some way.
Yeah, like no, like this is the ultimate purity test. It's like I'm saying, like you could be a full-blown communist. You say one thing that's like semi-critical of trans
and the thing
culture,
is, like,
then
if you really want to have like a discussion on it, the like dialectical materialist take on trans, people are not ready for that discussion. Okay? Because if we had like a dialectical materialist discussion on transgender and transsexuality, like we would not be talking about this, and everybody would be liberals who are siding with this kind of like movement. Anyway, to get back to it, like it doesn't matter if it's 1% of the time. It doesn't matter if it's 0.5% of the time. It doesn't matter if it's like a fraction of 1% of the time. If like there's a fear that some creepy dude is going to pretend to be a woman and take advantage of the fact that we, as human beings, love our trans friends. Like I said, I've been to a trans wedding. Like we all have trans friends. We don't want the like creepy AGP dude to take advantage of it and cop a feel in a bathroom or sexual assault somebody.
Or for Big Pharma to come in and make them permanent fucking patients. It's not.
Yes, like that's the issue. Like it was fine until it became like you have to.
It was fine until it became a cash grab. It was fine until
they saw, oh, we can turn that fraction of 1% into freaking 20%. All right, so let's just I'll skip through. I do want to show some of the AGP. I am going to show some of the AGP.
Do you have any videos?
Yeah, I do have some videos. Here we go. Gross old dude. This is not gender dysphoria. This is autogynephilia. This is what the book was about. Okay. See this fucking dude? Does that look like somebody whose gender is fork, or does that look like somebody?
Here, play it again. Zoom in and play it again. You might want to turn off your messages too. Yeah.
Like, this is some like old dude. That's not gender dysphoria.
Oh my god! Stop.
Like, come on, man.
All right, never mind. I don't want to see this anymore.
Like, come on. You know?
Okay, I regret asking you.
But that's like that's AGP. You know? Okay, I have another one, but you do see some Wang, so I'm gonna like hold off on that for now.
All right, yeah, no, keep it YouTube friendly. PG
so
friendly.
we do another dad, a father, in a student council meeting, saying his truth. Can you hear it all right?
I'll read some of this for you. It says, after a bit, a person's becomes moist and slippery, and the clitoris becomes hard. After a bit, a person's becomes erect, stiff, and larger. Sometimes a bit of clear fluid that may contain a few sperm comes out of the tip of the penis and makes it wet. Sir, I'm sorry. Was it something I said? If you don't want to hear it in a school board meeting, why should children be able to check it out of the school system? We have perverts that are perverting our kids. And you all sit back smug in your chairs, but you don't want me to read it. Why? Does it bother you? Yes or no? You can't answer that question. You want to know why? Because politically speaking, you can't say that it's wrong. And you don't want me to read the filth because it exposes the truth. How dare you tell me to stop reading it? If you don't want to hear it, why should the children have to see it? Pastor, your time is up. Thank you. That makes two of us.
So,
and this right here is where I really want to like highlight where the problem lies is like the lack of conversation, the lack of open argument, the lack of hearing any sort of other side whatsoever.
And we can
and
make the comparison.
Just like where we're at this point, and we can't like no one is allowed to say anything. No one can. No, it's not even like a topic that's like you're able to like bring up without being like.
So check this out. I'm glad that you mentioned that because there's another video to go with that. But just to say, like that guy, he really wasn't saying anything that I think is too edgy for somebody to hear in like a sex ed class. Like I don't think he was saying anything. The fact that like they were telling him to shut up tells me that there's not a fair balance. It's not a fair fight. If like adults don't want to hear the conversation, then maybe we should revisit how we're teaching it to children. But there is another discussion here that I will bring up where they do silence this poor woman. This is kind of crazy. Let's see. Silenced. So this is wild.
My name is Nicole Solis, and I'm a mother from Rhode Island who
Can you hear it all
was
right?
sued by the teachers union simply because I wanted to know what my kindergartner would be learning in school. And here's how this happened. I asked to see the curriculum, and my school told me I had to submit a public records request. The curriculum wasn't posted online, and it wasn't available in a school district. Then I asked them if they were teaching gender theory, and they told me that they don't call children boys and girls, and they embed the values of gender identity into every classroom, including kindergarten, and they didn't want to answer any of my questions further. They told me that they would communicate with me only through public records requests, and that is the only way I could get my questions answered. And when I did submit the public records request that they told me to submit, and I submitted hundreds because I had hundreds of questions, my school board then put my name on the agenda of a public school board meeting and held a public school board meeting to discuss suing me for submitting the request that they told me to submit. In a 5-hour-long school board meeting, they openly debated my moral character, my political motivations. They said that I was causing chaos, wreaking havoc, harming the district, harming children. One school board member even said she felt unsafe and started to cry because, as you see, I'm really scary standing here right now. And they really just tarred and feathered me for asking questions. And they had never met me before. And this was the first school board meeting that I had ever been to in my life. They wanted to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions, they will come after you. Well, at the end of this meeting, they decided that they wouldn't sue me for asking questions because they never intended on actually suing me. They just wanted to publicly humiliate me in a school board meeting that was a show trial. And when that happened, then the teachers union, the largest teachers union in the country, the NEA, did file a lawsuit against me to bully me and harass me with frivolous litigation and to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions about public education, they will come after you.
So that's I think that's like a really good way to put a pin in it. And if it wasn't for that lady being over the target, people telling her to shut up, maybe it wouldn't be so big of a deal. But when you have entire city councils going out to sue you to tell you to shut the fuck up and stop asking questions about your curriculum, maybe you should be a little bit more concerned about it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. Who knows what she was asking for? But you see, as soon as she started asking about gender ideology and gender theory, they were like, "Oh, you better shut up." So now to kind of wrap this up, I do kind of want to show, a little bit more on how this pride stuff isn't just about going after everybody and everybody's all inclusive. It is targeting children. So I do want to show some of this stuff.
This is the A to Z of awesome, a Lego celebration of the beautiful, powerful language of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Lego Play offers a universal, but most importantly, a safe space to express yourself and be who you are.
I'm a Black, queer woman who loves Lego bricks.
We invited members of the community to build Lego creations that represent their true stories.
The concept behind my build is you see this colorful, unique Lego brick to represent a happy, healthy, intersex person.
What I built here was a transgender garden. So all these different aspects of gender.
What does that mean?
Garden.
What's a transgender garden?
Family. So we are that safe space.
I think this project is a game changer.
Is that where you grow
Visibility equates value.
transgenders?
Discover the stories of the creators
Transgender
behind the
plan?
builds and submit your ideas to help us build the full A to Z.
All right.
This wasn't a great one.
So there's that one. And then there's, let's see, we'll do Disney. Disney, we kind of saw some of the stuff. It's not a video, but it's some pictures to look at. But again, Disney, yes, there are unhinged adults who are obsessed about Disney. But this is at Disney, okay? So again, harmless on the outside. Who really cares at the end of the day? But why kids? Why kids? Target the unhinged adults. You don't need to target kids. Okay, so
yeah, there is a market for this. It's just don't do it to kids. That's it.
So let's kind of wrap this up with where we're kind of going to go into next week, okay? Or later this week, I might get into it. But Target recently got put on blast because they had a presentation, a pride presentation at the beginning of their store. People were getting really pissed off. But so they ended up kind of relocating their children's section that had all the LGBTQ stuff on it. But something I kind of wanted to draw attention to, okay, is that this clothing, okay, do we all see this? Do we all see this? Tuck friendly, okay? That's children's clothing. Children's clothing needs to be tuck friendly in a Target. I'm sure there's a reason for that. And as it turns out, okay, the reason why Target is pushing it so hardly is because the Target VP of brand management is a board member of Gleason. And Gleason is an organization, an NGO, that pushes really hard on gender identity, tries to push onto being able for children to commit surgical and medical procedures without their parents' knowledge, tries to make it so teachers don't have to tell their parents when they identify as something other than they're born with in the classroom. So definitely very tightly committed, definitely very tightly connected between the Target and they're seemingly harmless, like trans clothing, and the fact that their VP materially benefits from being on the board of this completely unhinged organization that I will get into, that makes a very, very, very hard effort to market this to children. Okay, so I'll be talking more about this in the upcoming weeks, Gleason. Okay, but I didn't, again, I'm like more of the guy who is already familiar of CEI and ESG. So I don't really I had already thought ESG, CEI, I already know that they're cynical about this diversity bullshit. So, but when I saw that Target is connected to Gleason, okay, and Gleason is pushing hard to try and push onto this gender ideology onto children, that's when I was like, okay, there's something else here. There's something a little bit more sinister. We can talk all day about how we've seen, Bud Light stock go down, or Bud, the company, their stock has gone down a little bit. And at the same
Oh yeah, they're all going. They're all
Target's gone down a little bit,
They're
but the stock market is kind of detached from reality, and I think they'll kind of recover for the most part. Modelo still number one beer, and Modelo, who's Modelo owned by? Anheuser-Busch. So it's that's kind of part of monopoly capitalism that I don't keep up with as much.
Stakeholder
I don't think it's
capitalism.
as relevant. This is actually an old article too that you pulled up too.
No, I just wanted to point. I wanted to bring this up because this is truly unhinged shit. This is absolutely unhinged garbage.
Well, it's it reminds me of that
genders-
CIA ad that
yeah,
came
yeah.
out a couple years ago. The Gray Zone was
Yeah, sure.
The woke CIA, but it's
yeah,
and that was 6 years ago. But it's just, I think people, as I was saying earlier, if we want to have a dialectical materialist discussion on trans, the ideal is there anything materialist about trans? Is there anything materialist about somebody who, like me, is a man, have the chromosomes that make him a man? If I decided one day that I was a woman, is there anything material about that? Absolutely
and
not.
there's Marxists that are critical of radical feminism in the sense that well, the problem is that when we focus on gender is that gender is not
gender's made up,
exclusive to class, mutually exclusive.
Gender's made up to class. And that's another thing that kind of Blair White was talking about, which I think has some merit to it, is that she kind of was well, I try and say I'm more of a transsexual instead of a transgender, because gender is kind of a made up thing. And I think there's some truth to that. But it's hard when gender's just been pushed so hard.
I don't listen to Blair White much, but
don't listen to her for her politics. Her politics are awful.
No, she's garbage. That's why I don't listen to her. But I have listened to Buck Angel before.
Buck Angel also same idea. Buck Angel or
yeah, but it's the same idea, but Buck Angel, he's good, and he's good on the issues too. He's mostly left on the issues.
And I think Buck Angel, he's 60. He's been trans for a long
time. He was the first trans guy, the trans woman. He was the first.
He was the number patient one. Yeah.
Yeah. And he'll have this very nuanced the same exact take, and people want to cancel him for it. You could see it on Reddit. You'll be don't listen to Buck Angel.
Well, guys, it's here's the the thing is nobody has a problem playing the little game. I went to my trans friend's wedding and it was very nice, but I'm never going to have the conversation with them. Hey, just so you know you're not really a guy, are you? You know that, right? We're nice people. We're still humans in society.
No one wants to do that.
No one wants to do that. We all want to participate in society. We all want to be cool with each other. We're not going to be hey, just so you know, we're all playing around here. It goes without saying, we're all friends. We're all trying to participate.
I really think most people do not give a fuck.
Most people don't give a fuck, or most people will get fooled.
Most people are concerned with themselves. You know how many people are wrapped up in their own heads 24/7?
The thing is, the reason why I'm yes, it's so easy to be most people don't care, but at the same time, And you remember a few months ago there was like the Balenciaga thing that got blown up because of shoe. Like it brought attention to the fact that these guys are all fucking. I'm not trying to make the connection that everybody in the trans community is a bunch of freaking
famously blocked
pedophiles, but I'm saying that when you target to children, okay, little like the little red flags should go up, and like yes, like there's not that many of them, but it doesn't take much. Especially you remember like how many people there's that guy, there's there's two people in Biden's cabinet who I think are trans. But anyway, it's like it's not. It's fine to understand that there's not many people who make up the derelicts and perverts within this community. That's fine. I understand that. I'm not trying to suggest that there are like an insane amount of freaking derelicts and deviants within this community. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. Once the lactation thing comes out, like there's something,
and that's like
there's something else going on. Let's be honest.
But
come on.
What I am saying is that we still need to be like think in our heads with enough common sense to know that like you don't have to be on the left or right to know that we should pump the brakes a little bit on how we're presenting it to children. Let's pump the brakes a little bit because we know who's making money. Like every single trans patient will tell you that they are $1 million patient in the pharmacological and the medical and the surgical industry for the rest of their life. They are $1 million fucking payment forever. So like there's a lot.
I don't even think like anyone in this audience needs to hear that. I think like people need to like become comfortable with like, you know, being able to have the conversation in like a nuanced way and like have takes that are like, yeah, you know, like I support, you know, trans people, but you know, I do believe that there's
like,
you know,
but we didn't. The thing is, like I was saying in the beginning, that we didn't even need to have that conversation 6-7 years ago. We were all just like,
I know.
Hey man, I know you're not really a woman.
It's a matter of pointing that out. Like it's important to point that out that like there's clearly a cultural shift of like where.
But
like,
I think
that certain things have become not acceptable that were previously acceptable.
I think the cultural shift, unfortunately, is, and we've talked about this before, where I think a lot of like kind of like the cultural issues are just about co-opting people, and I think that like the people that we think are really awesome within this community are being co-opted to kind of internalize this ideology. And what's going to end up happening is, and we haven't even talked about it, but you're going to have kids who don't identify as kids anymore. What are you going to do when a 10-year-old identifies as somebody who's 19? You guys aren't ready for that conversation. But that's conversations.
Oh, the ageist thing.
The like, yeah, that's a conversation.
That's already, isn't that already a thing?
That's going
already
to be like, well, that's like, this is the precursor. They like the whole thing is that you need, and I saw Exolancic kind of touches upon this as well, where we dissociate. Part of what the trans movement is dissociating yourself from your body. And the belief is that your body is not connected to your brain and that you can interchange that and it doesn't impact yourself. But it does. It does. Like you're never going to convince me that like no matter how good your surgeon is, like that's still like a mental condition that's like going to be a lifelong condition that can never be overcome, no matter how much surgery you get. Okay. So
I was reading a Whitney Webb article like, where she like talks about like I'm making this connection in my head like, where she talks about where Jeffrey Epstein, I forgot like which set like scientists he like met up with, but like she in her book she talks about how like Jeffrey Epstein like wanted to like have his seed become like he wanted to like be like the he wanted to birth
total yeah
right like like how much of this is just like
well, dude,
like an Epstein plan put into practice?
I think the long-term thing is like I said, where if you can have people where they can comfortably like it's already internalized into our cultural hegemony that our bodies are kind of ethereal and aren't really attached to what's going on underneath, then there's eventually going to come a point where people are going to be gamed to think that your age is just a number and that number is connected to your body, which is dissociated from what goes on up here. So that 8-year-old that says they're 19 is eventually going to get married to some creepy 80-year-old, and everybody's going to be like, what the fuck happened? And here I am in 2023 telling you I told you so. So, like, that's what I see happening. This is really freaking terrible. Like, everybody wants to be so helpful and so lovely and so awesome for their friends, and so, like, open for their community. And the establishment has figured out that going after culture war shit to do their really nefarious stuff is where they have their most success, because they know that there's no room for nuance. If they know that we'll just shut up because we want to be allies, we want to be friends with our normal people, then they know that they can sneak through all the nefarious stuff. If you care about kids, you should be, yeah, I'm glad you pulled that up. Changing it a little bit, but anyway, yeah. As Courtney said, John Money, child rapist and advocated for surgery. Dude was an absolute nut. Like, I'm glad somebody else saw that. But this is a funny, kind of shifting course a little bit. This is funny. I just think that for Pride Month, can you zoom in even more? I don't even know if you can get even closer. But under where it says Happy Pride Month, this was commissioned ostensibly by...
All colors are beautiful. Oh my god.
Wait, you didn't see that?
Commissioned ACAB. What the fuck?
You didn't see that?
Holy fuck. What?
Oh, you didn't see that?
No,
oh my god.
Wait. I didn't make that connection.
Oh, you didn't see that? That's
I did not make that connection. I saw this, but I did not notice that. Oh my
dude.
god.
Okay, so a person ostensibly a minority,
oh my
person
god.
of color,
wow,
got commissioned to make this NYPD cruiser, and they did ACAB in it. They snuck ACAB in it like a fucking.
Oh my god! Look, and the NYPD, like, they're literal gang members. They're not police. They're gang members. They're like
gang. They're gang.
No, it's bad. It's really
But
bad.
The fact that ACAB was snuck in there is kind of funny.
Insane.
So yeah, but let me see what else we got in there. Man, I got a bunch of stuff. ACAB. Yeah. Oh, and then I guess you can post this while you're sharing the screen. I guess the last thing. This thing, I actually ended up deleting my post because, yes, I turned into a snowflake and people were racial at me and getting really pissed. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to put context to this before I just outright and say this. But I originally made the comment that this is outright targeting children. And people got really pissed at me for saying this. But this is Pride targeting children. Sesame Street is unquestionably for children. No adults, unless you have an IQ of a fucking shoe size, is watching this on a regular basis. And as I've expressed earlier, and as Courtney L. Conover has said in the notes in the chat, is that the origins of the trans movement is not just diversity and inclusion and sharing and caring about each other. It's really ugly, and it's kind of sexualizing children. So, but people didn't really want to hear that when I posted yesterday. But, but this is in a way they're targeting children with a movement that sexualizes minors. So I have a problem with that. A lot of people don't, and the fact that I took my post down because people were getting so angry at it tells me that cultural hegemony is just a tough nut to crack. But it sucks that I want everybody who fits within the normal flag, that normal pride flag. I care about you guys, and I hope you guys can express.
That's the other. Well, if you ask most, especially the lesbian community, is very pissed about. There's a very big divide.
Well, and then they want to say that you're transphobic if you don't want to have a sex with trans woman because she has a dog.
Yeah, exactly. So what will happen is male, male to female transition, and then they'll expect they'll have lesbian women to have sex with them as with a male intact,
and that's a lesbian relationship according to your ideology.
And it's just not only is it absurd, but it's now it's taking a toll on your fellow gay members in the communities. Some of my plenty of my closest friends are gay, lesbian. They also come across from this same take, and I agree with that. They're trying to erase homosexuality.
Yes, And one of the things while we're on that, because she reminded me of another comment that I'm thinking about, is what the transgender movement is also doing is it's redefining what it means to be a woman in the image of a man. So it's like the most misogynist and patriarchal thing going on is for a man to dress up in how they think a woman is supposed to look. And now the image of a woman is not what a woman is, but it's what a man who cosplays as a woman says a woman is. So that's another thing where like we just need to be more aware of how we're kind of changing our relationship as men to women, and how we're not even talking about class. We're just talking about patriarchal and kind of like a feminist take on the transgender movement. So if you care about women, if you care about, smashing the patriarchy, we should be against gender ideology. We should be keeping it away from children. That's all. Anyway, I think that's probably good. But we are going to get more into Gleason. Gleason is a really nefarious organization that's working with Target. So there are some connections there that go deeper with more money behind it. But I think it covered kind of what I wanted to get into today.
Okay.
It was about an hour.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, Chris is going to be, I believe he's going to be streaming himself on Thursday.
So maybe on Thursday I'll have some stuff.
Because I'm not available. But
the thing is, like, with the 24-hour news schedule and all that shit.
Yeah, there's too many.
There could be something else. Like, I'll be doing research between now and Thursday on Gleason and whatever else. But like, Russia could overtake Ukraine, and that could end up being what we're talking about. So we'll see. But like, that's kind of where the Thursday is kind of going to be the show where I'm kind of deep diving more into these broader topics that like maybe people normally have a problem with, but if we can have some nuance, we can kind of like see where all the layers are going and see how like Target putting stuff on display that has rainbows on it is really nice and thoughtful and really appeals to everybody on face value. But then you find out like where all these fucking roots and tentacles are going, and you're like, oh my god, these people are evil as fuck. What the hell is going on? And that's kind of where I want to explore.
It is like the corporatist aspect of it that's the most sinister, really. Yeah.
Thank you also for Courtney for noticing about Cole's too with Gleason, because I will want to make that connection as well. So thank you. I'm guessing there's a few.
Yeah. If you guys are watching, don't forget to like and subscribe. Anything you guys can do really help us out, and not only the algorithm, but to beat us in the YouTube suppression that is consistently happening under the COVID regime that's happening right now. And I think Linda actually just came in recently. It's June, so Linda's the new CEO apparently.
Oh, for Twitter?
Yeah.
Also, all
things are rolling out. Things are rolling out.
It's gonna start getting really ugly in this bitch.
Yeah.
It's gonna start getting really weffy. We're gonna get fed now in the next couple months.
It's getting really weffy in here. Get real weffy. You'll see it. Eat the bugs. Eat the bugs. That's right, Brad.
The funny thing is people will have like a discourse on Twitter about Elon, but I blocked him like 2 months ago. So I'll be like, what is everybody like having this huge discourse about? I won't know because I blocked his ass.
All right. Well, to continue speaking on Ukraine, I hope that all of the Ukraine flag bios are happy, and I hope that everyone who says that we need to support Ukraine with defense, like Kyle Klinsky, people with dumb fuck foreign policy, who believe that sending endless weapons to the most corrupt country in Europe is just okay. Well, now we have So Melanino TV is saying that this is a Javelin anti-tank missile. It's not. It's an apparently Swedish military officials are saying this is an AT-4, which is still something that they very frequently
NATO
Ukraine. And this is footage from Monday that aired on Tuesday evening that showed a man with a missile that is from Reagan.
Presunto miembro del cártel del Golfo en Tamaulipas fue grabado portando una de las armas más exclusivas y poderosas, un javelin, que en teoría se vende únicamente al ejército y ha sido utilizado durante la invasión a Ucrania, por ejemplo. En el mercado negro, esa arma que lleva a su derecha, la otra es una...
So, I mean,
that's a Stinger missile, right?
Presunto miembro del cártel del Golfo en Tamaulipas fue grabado portando una de las...
So keen-eye military experts believe the weapon in the Miliano footage may actually be AT-4, a Swedish-made disposable anti-tank launcher, which is still also likewise supplied to Ukraine by the thousands. So it's not like it's like that was supposed to be like the debunk. It was like kind of like how did you see how Jackson Hinkle got like community noted today? Because
I blocked him too.
Oh, you blocked him? God damn.
Blocked him or muted him.
So he like quote tweeted the Gray Zone article with the Nord Stream where they found the boot.
I saw that. I saw that article.
So all the NAFO crowds are saying, "Oh, like that's not a diver's boot, you fucking idiot, you fucking stupid idiot." And like meanwhile, it's like still, yes, it is a diver's boot. Like it's like it is absolutely what they actually the US Navy uses. Yeah, Jackson got community noted by NAFO today. So that's the problem with community notes. Community notes might be a danger.
Wait, so NAFO can community note?
Yeah, NAFO can community note. We learned that today with Jackson.
Oh my god! So straight up disinfo, just soy words.
Yep. Yep. So I really hope everyone's happy. I hope all that money is going to put to great use over in Mexico with the drug cartels. You know,
so I mean, but that it just reminds me of
because Putin has warned, Russia has repeatedly warned the U.S. and its allies not to stuff Ukraine with weapons and ammunition, both because it risks a direct confrontation and since the non-existent controls would result in weapons end up in the criminal underworld. And he warned this. He warned about this in July 2022.
So here's the thing that I'm trying to like wrap my head around because I remember us hearing. I had that article, I think from last week, but that like 2/3 of all weapon shipments going to Ukraine weren't making it into the field, and they were being sold on the black market.
So look
70%.
Look at this article from 2016 in the Reuters article from 2016. Ukraine after war becomes a troll for black market arms trade.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, sure. And so, like, I want to ask you, like, this is really the broader question here that I'm curious about is how does. So I'm assuming that we're shipping these off of like the East Coast border. It's getting sent to the shipping coast. How is it getting turned around and then back into Mexico? Unless Ukraine is just directly selling it from there.
So that's a great question, and I don't want to like have too much dead air trying to think about that. But I could imagine U.S. military flying it right back into Mexico.
You think so?
Okay, so it's kind of like so think about like do you like when you like the drug trade in Colombia is all done through the military. Okay, like the people running it is all military. So it stands to reason, like just you already know the Pentagon has trillions of dollars missing, right?
They're sending fucking weapons.
No, but you already know that they're missing like trillions of dollars. Like, oh, maybe a red pill to some people, but there was like 2.3 trillion that Rumsfeld said was missing from the Pentagon.
Oh, no, it's every year. Every year they're missing shit from the Pentagon.
But this was the day before 9/11, the day before the Pentagon got hit. Rumsfeld said on national TV, $2.3 trillion was unaccounted for from the Pentagon. So just throwing that out there. But I don't think it's beyond the imagination for a guy flying a A130 or whatever, those huge freaking supply airplanes. They'd be like, oh, there's six shipments on that 130. No, there's 5. Oh, there's 5. And then they go on their way. Money is exchanged and they're on their way.
But like you're dealing with one of the most corrupt countries in you. I mean, I'm imagining it's getting tracked in some way, but I'm trying to figure out like who's bypassing this? Who's getting? Who's putting the stamp on this?
But we both agree that part of U.S. imperialism and part of their job is continuing, like the cartels and stuff that like fueling the war machine in other countries. They're not. You don't see anybody at the Pentagon or at DHS or at Border Patrol being like, oh no, they have those freaking rocket launchers. They're like, oh, they got our rocket launchers. How'd that happen? Like now we have like legitimacy for our organization. You know, like,
and that's the other problem that I wanted to connect it to. You have fucking maniacs, like Lindsey Graham, who are out here on Fox News. They're telling audiences of millions of people to go and fucking invade Mexico. Watch.
So basically, using that Plan Colombia, we've done this before.
Yes.
So there's nothing outrageous in our national security history.
Talking about Gary Webb, fucking.
I believe you said it happened during the Clinton administration. So, a Democrat. You've got Senator John Kennedy with you today. You're looking for. He was on this show last night. We were talking about
awesome.
the Federal Reserve. He's a pretty smart fella. Yes, indeed.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's also got a good sense of humor, as you do as well. Tell us more about the military. So, if the military is authorized, Senator.
Right.
I kind of tell me if this is wrong, but look, you're been in our Army for so many years, not me, but I sort of think of it as our military in hot pursuit. Sometimes you have to do that in wartime across the border in order to go after the cartels.
I can't really say it any better. Just imagine this: there's an ISIS cell in Mexico or an Al Qaeda cell. They lob a rocket into to Texas. We'd blow them off the map. We'd try to work with Mexico. If they wouldn't work with us, we'd take out the terrorist threat. Well, these drug cartels are killing more Americans than 9/11, more Americans than car wrecks and gun violence combined each year. More Americans than the entire Vietnam War die from fentanyl poisoning, 70,000 a year, and it's going up. So what does this two-step process, what does it allow? It allows for the drug cartels to be treated differently under U.S. law, and the authorization to use military force is not to invade Mexico, not to take the Mexican government down, is to use military force to strike at the cartels, the labs, and their infrastructure that's killing Americans. We do this all over the world. We hit terrorists in Syria almost every night. We do it in Iraq. Wherever there's a threat to Americans.
Why not Mexico? Let's go straight to Mexico.
We deal with that threat. The number one job of the federal government is to defend this nation. The Biden.
You remember the pictures of him in like 2015 and
with McCain and
The administration has not done all they could do to stop the fentanyl poisoning of Americans. They have been slow. They have been reluctant. I am changing the game. I want every drug dealer in Mexico to not sleep well at night wondering if there's a missile coming through the window.
I love that.
So this is serious.
Any foreign government.
Like people are they're this is an actual
to intervene
thing
in our territory.
Yeah, I mean, he's being...
Especially not a foreign government's armed forces. What's wrong with them? Of course we don't accept that. We don't accept threats. But it's not President Biden's government, it's the Republicans.
son los republicanos.
That was Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. He was reacting to calls by some U.S. Republicans to send the U.S. military to shut down drug labs in Mexico. Senator Lindsey Graham said he would introduce a new bill to designate Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and authorize the use of military force against them.
We're going to unleash the fury and might of the United States against these cartels. Not to invade Mexico, not to shoot Mexican airplanes down, but to destroy drug labs that are poisoning Americans.
So you get the point. This is mostly like the whole purpose. I feel like is like to make the connection to, or like the broader point here is really to just drum up and draw more war. And you can see a reason why they want to get rid of this guy. Because Elmo,
Palestine.
Yeah, no, this is a big deal.
Hard line, very hard line for American establishment. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, you can't find a politician who does this. Can't find a politician who does this, but you can find a Mexican president who does, and that's why they want to send troops in there, and that's why they're doing this under this veil of being of for like a drug cartel.
It's just like, so this is like kind of like the overarching thing that I was saying, where like things are getting so absurd that like saying something like that like 5-10 years ago, people have been like, your head's on broken, like, oh, invading Mexico, what? And, like, are they crazy enough to do it? Could they really do it? Are they really going to invade Mexico? Under the auspices of, like, oh, we need to take down the cartels with the weapons that we are indirectly selling them. Like AMLO knows that the weapons that the cartel have is illegally imported American arms. Like, he knows that, like, Mexican cartels are part of that circuit. So like it's kind of like a unserious conversation that they're having about like, oh, we're gonna invade Mexico because like the cartel getting American drugs is like or getting American guns is a story.
Yeah, that's part of their whole
that's
shit.
Like just it's been going on for decades. It's not going to stop anytime soon, regardless of whether we throw out, like, if there was like a coup and we throw out and instill an already more favorable Mexican president, there would still be a cartel drug and gun trade.
Yeah, like I could see that. I could see like some sort of like coup thing.
But it wouldn't stop.
Connected.
Huh?
Because
Yeah.
they need each other. I mean, like how else is Zelensky going to get his cocaine?
Exactly. That's part of, like, I'm sure there's a part of it where it's
there's
like,
a direct line from Mexico.
Like, you see those videos. There was one.
That's where he gets his code.
There was one video a couple of days ago. It looked like he couldn't sit straight. It was hard to watch.
No, he's got some.
Like, but I try, like, and me seeing him, it's fucking funny, man. Me seeing fucking Zelensky skeeted out is the only time I'll have just like an ounce of sympathy for him. Because I'm like, try and imagine
out all the time.
All the calls that he's getting from Blinken, from Hillary Clinton, from Victoria Nuland, from like the worst people, from Kissinger, like the worst people in the world, just blowing up Zelensky's phone all the time.
And he's just sitting there. He wakes up. He rises
he's
up
coked out of his mind.
He's just like
all the time. Like, just
he's just like,
dude. It's like, you know that if Hillary Clinton is calling you, that you don't ignore that call. If you're Zelensky, like, you can't ignore that call and expect to get away with it. Oh, I'm taking a shit. Yeah, that's why I gave you your phone in your bathroom. Like there's no, like, that's why I'm like, man. Like, the amount of stress, like, for Zelensky, because remember, last year, Boris Johnson thwarted efforts for negotiations to commence. That was going to happen. Zelensky did try and make a feeble attempt to end the war last year. Like, that did actually happen. And so, like, yeah, I think he's got a crazy drug habit because he's basically surrounded with, like, real life demons and villains 24/7. Like, beyond, like, man-made horrors beyond our comprehension all day long.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Still hate the Nazi, but, like,
I can only I'm
see
not,
him skeeted
I'm
out.
having
That's
trouble
my
just,
thing
like,
now.
putting myself in that situation already. But
I couldn't imagine, but you know he was a puppet from day one, so.
Oh yeah, we know. Let's run on to the next thing real quickly. We could do this quickly. This is the fresh off the press UFO story. Now, is it Project Bluebeam or is it real? Let's play the game.
Well,
Intelligence officials say U.S. has retrieved craft from non-human origin. So a former intelligence officer whistleblower. I haven't gotten into any detail on this guy. His name is David Charles Grush. He is 36, decorated former combat officer in Afghanistan. Served as a reconnaissance officer, blah, blah, blah. Task was established to investigate what were once called unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, now officially called unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. Don't know why they're rebranding it. But he was a part of this task force, and he had said that recoveries of partial fragments through and up to intact vehicles have been made for decades through the present day by the government, its allies, and defense contractors. And so this is the latest in the UFO phenomena story. This is where everyone's blowing up over. You're seeing like a lot of like the right wingers love this. I don't know why they love the UFO stuff so much. Maybe it's because
they feel like the government's being honest to them for once.
Yeah, like maybe like this is like the one thing where they're telling me that. They have a video of this guy. I'm pretty sure it's in the.
It's just with all the like people taking videos of like the light formations and all that stuff. Who the hell knows what this? It feels like a psyop to me.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily like, and for those who are unfamiliar, Project Bluebeam is like the concept, and I'm pretty sure like that it's a confirmed.
It's confirmed.
Operation.
It's confirmed.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's the idea of to like create like quote unquote like the fake idea of like an enemy of a fake enemy in the sky.
Do you remember?
So that you can create infinite weapon contracts.
Do you remember when there was the like Chinese spy balloon, and like right before that, people were talking about Project Bluebeam because they were saying that they were spotting all the like different UFOs and all that shit? Do you remember that? Like people were talking about Project Bluebeam like right before that Chinese spy balloon went over the country.
Yeah, there's that too.
So, like, I do notice that they put out more of like kind of like the UFO limited hangout shit like more frequently over the last few years, but like,
yeah, what is this is like? So this is what's telling me that something else is going on, and that's why here. I mean, you watch this video and you tell me this guy looks legit to you.
NASA held its first public meeting on UFOs, which, by the way, are now called officially unidentified aerial phenomena. This is a year after launching a study into unexplained sightings. And now tonight, a worldwide TV exclusive you will only see right here on News Nation. Bombshell claims from a military whistleblower published just this morning, alleging a secret UFO retrieval program within the U.S. government. David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, now formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before. He is speaking one-on-one with investigative reporter Ross Coldhart, reporting for News Nation.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
He's smiling. Look at him.
I mean, I do believe that we have like.
All right, tune into Var.
Like I do believe we have some of that technology. What I do think, like what they change it to instead of UFO, it's UAO or
It's
unidentified
UAP now.
UAP. So
Yeah.
I think the reason that they changed it is to memory hole UFO. So when people are doing FOIA requests like 20, 30 years from now, they're doing FOIA requests for the wrong thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Memory hole in that shit.
That's
generation ahead of time.
That's a good connection. Good. But I don't necessarily. I don't know. I don't really necessarily believe a lot of people that come straight out of the Pentagon. I mean, this guy's.
I mean, that guy, like, he could be just going for a book deal or something like that.
Quite a number.
It seems to me like he's. I mean, again, you believe what you want. I mean, this is just for the.
It's just they're like. It seems to me that most of the time these like UFO stories are like usually vague and kind of like talk about the same kind of tropes, and I don't know. I'm more concerned like what are they throwing people off by throwing this person onto mainstream media that they don't want us to know about? Why are they feeding us this like idiot for all intents and purposes to talk about spaceships that we're never gonna like enjoy the technology of? When like what's going on instead right now, you know? It feels like it's me to throw us off the trail.
Yeah, and that probably definitely has a part of it too. I mean, like, given like everything that's going on too, there's way more important shit going on.
It could just, I mean, it'll be interesting if we start seeing some products with their technology flying around, but like I don't know. We've seen.
I mean, I've seen some like convincing story, like Did you see Phenomena, that documentary? And they
is that what?
There's the one Zimbabwe story with the school children. It's like 170 witnesses of like the spacecraft. Yeah.
So there's definitely like I've never gone into the huge UFO rabbit hole. Like people try and say that the Aztec.
I got curious about it. I don't really necessarily believe it 100%.
A lot of like old archaeology has like alien symbolism, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm more of the opinion that it's usually a limited hangout, because if the government really had like technology that was like way more advanced than what we had, maybe reverse engineering that shit, right? You know, like
yeah,
feel like we're not reaping the benefits of that kind of pilfered technology. I don't know.
I'm looking to already transition to Cornell West here, and I hate to already like. I know you don't like talking about electoralism, and now like
no. It's the thing is with the presidential season, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of rolling something up while we're doing this.
Yeah, go ahead, do what you need to
do. With the presidential season around the corner, and just because Cornell West is like what is he doing? Like, it's worth talking about, but.
Do you think he knows what he's doing? Do you think he knows who? Like, has he done a Google search? Has he seen any of the allegations against Nick Brana?
Okay. So what's my first impression of Cornell West doing this? I think Cornell West, being the like genius that he is, knows that the People's Party is a joke. He knows that there's no chance in hell for him to ever be president. So then, from his position, he's like, well, if People's Party wants to like fund a soapbox for me for a few months, you know,
maybe for him to sell a couple books. I mean, I'm not really exactly sure. I mean,
it could be a book. It could like
they don't have ballot access.
He could be
that.
We could be the most
like. I'm not trying to slam Dr. Cornell West here, because there's a lot that I respect about him, actually.
That's where I was trying to come from, like to give him the most benefit of the doubt. Give him the most benefit of the doubt. He just wants to get his message out. And he's like, if the People's Party wants to pay for me to pretend to run a presidential campaign so I can talk about things like rent control and free healthcare and, you know, maybe some class struggle stuff. Hey, like, I can kind of understand him having that perspective as like a state of like, as like praxis in a way, like using People's Party as a way to get his own message out. You know, but do I think Cornel West is running a serious campaign? No. I don't think he thinks he's running a serious campaign.
I think everyone knows that it's not a serious campaign, but my biggest question, like the question that's popping up in my head is, does he know that it's not a serious campaign? Because he's old and he's, you know, fairly gullible, and, you know, before people get too excited.
See, how old is Cornel West? 70-something.
70-something, at least. I lost the article.
I mean, I think he's. I don't know. I think he probably sees it as an opportunity for him to get a message out. There's probably some self-interest there. I don't think he really thinks that there's like any presidential opportunity for him. And I think, didn't you say he voted for Biden?
Yeah, look at this. Here we go.
Now is Harvard professor of the practice of public philosophy, Dr. Cornel West himself. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, my dear brother, for having me. You've been doing a wonderful job. Wonderful job, my brother.
Oh, Mehdi Hassan.
Appreciate that. So I want to talk about Biden's appointments and his agenda. But before I get to that, can I just double check? This year, you didn't go third party, did you? You voted for Joe Biden for the Democrat for president.
Part of an anti-fascist coalition, a coalition that said we've got to get Brother Trump out. He's a neo-fascist gangster. He calls into question the very possibilities of any kind of democratic politics. Looks like that coalition did come together. He's on the way out, we hope. And now we've got to deal with the neoliberal disaster of Biden and Harris. And we've got to be very honest about it. I think they're going to be much better in terms of stability. But the rot is still there. Remember that wonderful line in Shakespeare's Hamlet? Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Something is rotten in the United States.
He totally had the
and the corruption. And I think Biden and Harris can redirect the rot, maybe slow down the rot, but the greed will still be there. The big money will still be there. The benefactors, the donors will still be there. The mass incarceration system will still be in place. The Pentagon militarism will still be expanded. We've already seen that now in the Middle East, AFRICOM and Africa and so forth. So we got to just tell the truth. We've got to be committed, brother. And you know, as a journalist, to the truth. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Yeah. We got to be committed to justice. So it's not a matter of identity. You got an all-women group. Yeah. Women can lie just like men. Black people can lie just like white people, like brown people, and indigenous people. So, it's integrity.
I want to come back to that.
It's solidarity. That's what we're concerned about.
I'm going to jump in. Dr. West. I want to get into that with you. I want to get into that with you. You've jumped ahead to my next question. But before we get to that, great points you're making there. Before we get into that important discussion, just to finish off this point, your critics would say, yay, well done, congratulations for being part of an anti-fascist coalition in 2020. Why weren't you part of that anti-fascist coalition in 2016? Do you regret your vote in 2016? Did you just not realize how bad Trump would be?
I thought that maybe there would be stronger mechanisms of accountability. Really did. And I didn't even think that Trump would actually win.
Mehdi Hassan getting complimented by Cornel West, and he still has to
it was just a matter of trying to generate a longer, deeper left opposition, because I didn't think that Trump was going to win. I thought Hillary was going to win no matter what. And I'm in the state of Massachusetts, so you know that was going to go for Sister Hillary no matter what. Anyway, very much so.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if Hillary ran this time, I would have supported her. I would have supported Hillary this time, as much as I'm critical of her, because that's part of the anti-fascist coalition.
Fair enough. No. I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of anti-fascism. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about the people Biden is appointing. You just touched on an important issue. They're very qualified, clearly very clever, especially compared to the current bunch they're replacing. They're also very diverse. For example, Fox News is reporting that Biden might select former CIA veteran Darrell Blocker as his new CIA director. He would be the first black man to run the CIA, and he would be working directly under the first.
And of course, we love that over in anti-fascist, fight.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Anti-fascist. So I'm behind Biden.
It's all a complete joke.
Yeah.
And if you weren't sold on that yet, here it is again.
Welcome to Democracy Now! Democracy Now! He ran for governor of...
Elf said 4 years ago...
The Pentagon greed and the Wall Street greed
and the inability of the police and others unable to generate enough energy to seriously reform itself. It remains sanitized, superficial. We getting Lawrence Welk's bubbles rather than.
That being said, I'm glad that he's running independent. God bless him.
Well, he's not. He's running under the People's Party.
Yeah, no, he's running under the
independent, I
People's
guess.
Party. But, yeah. It's outside of the duopoly. But, you know, like that's why, like, I'm like, okay, you know what? Do what you gotta do. Like, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. I don't think it's gonna gain any sort of serious momentum. I think we're gonna forget all about all these people in about a year from now. But it's just a matter of finding out, and just a matter of all the dominoes falling into place. And this is just where, like, the bigger question comes in. Like, we were already fed the Marianne and the RFK agenda. Mm-hmm. And this is really just to pick up all the rest of the leftover votes.
Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad.
It's so sad because you're seeing them all storm up for this. They're like, yes, this is our guy.
Well, and with you saying that, I wonder if Brana was like, maybe this is my last chance to, like, ride this wave. Well, somebody picked up RFK and somebody picked up Marianne. All right,
if I was really Nick Brana, and, like, I've actually spoken to Nick Brana. If I was Nick Brana, I would continue making rallies, and I would stop trying to run political candidates. He tried it with Jimmy Dore, and it didn't work.
Jimmy Dore didn't want
because Jimmy Dore knows better than that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why. Like, I think Nick is really effective at organizing events like Rage Against the War Machine. I think that was a very successful event. Mm-hmm. I think that was a very good time. And I think he should continue doing stuff like that. And do you know they changed the name too? They changed the name from it was originally Movement for People's Party to People's Party. I think we talked about that actually.
Yeah, they changed the name.
But that just goes to show, like, is there, like, maybe perhaps there's like a rebranding going on, and they do plan.
I think they did that a while ago because I actually volunteered with MPP a while ago after I became.
So did I. I used to run the New Jersey division with Kate, with New Jersey Kate.
Yeah, like I was on the.
And then she showed up on Status Quo. You know, about the whole sexual assault meltdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because I think it had a little bit of momentum, a little bit after Bernie.
I bought into it in the beginning.
I did
bought
too.
into it in the beginning.
But you didn't get the ballot access, and it just sort of fizzled out, and then it really wasn't. It wasn't a workers' movement. Because I remember being in it, and they were like, all right, we're going to vote for the actual party. Should we call it the People's Party? Should we call it the Workers' Party? Something like that. And I was like, we should call it the Workers' Party. And Brana was like, no, I don't like the Workers' Party because it's not a Workers' Party. It's like, oh, okay, it's like that then.
Yeah, it's actually not, like, technically a party. It's, like, technically, like, by most standards, it's a political organization.
Right.
Which is what they're supposed to, you know, sort of brand themselves as. Not like they're a party that can run people, unless they start running people. I don't know.
And they get ballot access and all this.
That's the only way. It's really the only way.
But yeah, I think if we see more Cornel West on TV talking about the suffering of the average American is a good thing.
And if he's doing it not as a Democrat, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. So more coverage of Cornel West on TV, that's a good thing. So either
I think that's the only thing we should care about. That's probably the only thing we should care about.
Exactly. Yeah. If like people want to throw him a bone, like I don't even care about the People's Party, but Cornel West generally has a pretty good message. I don't like. He doesn't have too many takes I don't disagree with. So if he wants to use the opportunity to get more airtime on mainstream media, I hope it works. Because I don't think he's seriously running for president.
Absolutely not. Definitely not. Well, folks, I guess a fairly short. That was all the stories for tonight. I mean, that was a fairly shorter stream than usual. It's a couple of 2 hours, which is not far below from usual. But I'm glad anyone coming out here to hang out and support is greatly appreciated. And again, if you're here, please like and subscribe and comment, do whatever you can to engage, because it helps us beat the algorithm, helps us with YouTube's subscription. That's the problem with independent media. They're going to get pushed out by
it's happening.
VCs.
We went on Rumble for the first time a couple weeks ago because there's still certain things you can't talk about. Oh, and that's like a side note. You see that now it's okay to talk about election interference.
Election misinformation, yeah.
Yeah. So
are they going to pay back any of those people? No.
But it's okay. It's okay to talk about that. I guess we could have made that a story a little bit. But that's actually funny to me, because when I saw that they are now like allowing election misinformation, it's like, oh, they plan on cheating and losing.
Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen. Oh, so they're gonna cheat in the election.
So Trump's gonna win next year, and
Trump's gonna win, and the Russians stole it, and okay. So this is the precursor for all of that. It all makes sense. Okay.
I can't help it. I can't help it, because that's what I see.
Look at these two morose motherfuckers. Hit the like, folks. That's right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate you all.
Well, have a good Monday night, and pleased to begin the week with you all. Enjoy INN News on Wednesday. Bitch with Miss T on Saturday. You're gonna be going live on Thursday.
I think we're going live on Thursday. Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of content coming up, and we'll be clipping this up in the meantime. But
appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody.